Well, to find out what makes the Chinese education system different and how the global approach could transform schools, I spoke with Neil Strowger. Neil is the CEO at Bohunt Education Trust. I began by asking about the key advantages of Chinese teaching methods.
Well, I think it's about doing a concept in depth so that children really have a thorough understanding of a particular area of mathematics before progressing to the next. So I think there has been in the past a tendency in British textbooks to focus on an area of maths or a particular skill, but then to move on and introduce another skill, possibly before a student has a really thorough grounding or understanding of what it is that they need to know. So I think that's really important.
So then, do you see demand for this rising in the next couple of years? And if so, why?
Well, I think absolutely there will be an increased demand for this because we are adopting a more fluid or a fluency approach. And there is always a lag in resource creation to get a new textbook to market. So I think we will only see that as it goes through the primary phase of education and up into secondary as children transition across. So this increased need for mathematical fluency will certainly increase demand as we go forwards.
And what do you think are some of the advantages of the Chinese style of teaching math as opposed to other methods?
Well, I think there obviously are some cultural elements, as always, to teaching and different education systems in different countries. So, for example, the Chinese education system has a strong focus on co-planning, teachers working together to prepare resources. But also there is provision built into the curriculum for children that haven't necessarily grasped a concept to catch up. So a kind of remediation in terms of teaching as well. So there are things that perhaps are specific to the way the Chinese approach, but importantly, this mastery, this giving children the building blocks is really, really important.
So Neil, does that advantage that you're seeing in math extend to other subjects outside of that?
I think quite possibly yes is the appropriate answer. But what we have to remember as well is that when making comparisons between different education systems, we need to go into some of the detail of that. For example, Chinese teachers have a little bit more time to plan lessons and possibly co-planning as well. And also students themselves have opportunities to remediate or to catch up if they haven't fully grasped the concept. So I can see that those tenets, that approach, would be true of other subjects as well as mathematics. But it's definitely true that through maths, there is that repetition leads to a greater understanding and fluency of conceptual knowledge.
Let's also look at teacher exchange programs. What are your thoughts on perhaps seeing more of this between China and the UK?
I think that's a really good idea because it does help to contextualize as well what is happening in the classroom. And for example, in our trust, the Bohunt Education Trust, we do have strong links with China. We do send our students and our staff out to our linked and partner schools to try and fully immerse themselves in what it's like to be both the teacher in that lesson, but also what is it like to be a pupil as well. And I think the two can't be separated.
And let's talk about the pupil and the student reaction. How have they taken to this, and what's been some of the outcomes that you've seen?
Well, we've seen the full range, probably, of emotion and reaction. There are those students who have a real light bulb moment with the Chinese approach because they've actually had sufficient time to look at a particular area, be it a skill or mathematical concept, to see how that then correlates or links back to a previous area of learning. So that can be really, really helpful. And also in terms of just pedagogy, some pupils have really appreciated a different approach that's more teacher-led, and they don't have to show what they know or don't know in that sort of more interactive pupil-teacher dynamic. So I think it does depend, obviously, on the teacher and the pupil, and all pupils have a slightly different set of preferences with regard to learning. So I think we've seen a mixed picture, some real benefits, but also some pupils who have struggled a little bit with a more didactic approach to teaching.